Okay, number 3, I'm going to work through these next few fairly quickly just because they're pretty much all done the same. So I'm going to find out what my slope is. So I'm going to write my coordinate points for -2. I'm going to see how y is changing. In this case, it is increasing by 1, and x is increasing by 2, which means my slope is 1/2. Change in y over change in x. So now what I need to do is find out what my y-intercept is. And in order to do that, I'm going to pick either one of these, and it doesn't really matter which one you use. I'm just going to use the first one. So we have y equals mx plus b. I'm going to sub in 1/2 for the m. I'm going to sub 2 in for the x, and I'm going to sub -3 in for the y. So whenever I do that, my equation looks like this. -3 equals 1/2 times, I'm going to turn that 2 into a fraction, 2/1 plus b. So now I'll multiply my numerators. 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. So my equation looks like this. And this can be simplified. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. I'll write the rest of my equation. I'm going to subtract 1, because that's the opposite of adding 1. Subtract 1 on this side, so I end up with -4 is what b equals. So whenever I write my equation, it's going to be y equals 1/2 x minus 4. Because the 1/2 is my slope and the -4 is my y-intercept. So there's my answer right there. Number 4, we're going to create a little table. We've got 2 and 5 and 4 and 2. My y values are decreasing by 3, but my x values are increasing by 2, which means that my slope is -3/2. And I'm going to find out what my y-intercept is, mx plus b. I'm going to sub in this -1/3 in for m, and I'm going to sub in 2 in for x and 5 in for y, so it'll look like this. 5 equals -3/2 times 2/1. I just turned it into a fraction. And I'm going to multiply 3 times 2, and that gives me 6. 2 times 1, and that gives me 2. And a negative times a positive is going to equal a negative. So my equation looks like this. And now this can be simplified. 6 divided by 2 is going to equal 3. And so this should be a -3, because don't forget about your negative out front here. So now I'm going to add 3. I'm going to add 3 to this side. And I've got b equals a +8. So whenever I create my equation, it's y equals -3/2 x plus 8. And this is an improper fraction, but I'm cool with it for right now. Okay? Because if I was to have to graph this later, I would want rise over run, so I'm just going to leave it like that. But you can think back to like 5th grade, 6th grade on how you would turn that into a mixed number, but I don't really want you to in case we were to graph it. Alright, number 5. We have x and y. I'm going to write down my coordinates, -3 and -5, -1 and 3. Let's see, this is changing by a +8. Okay, because if I go from -5 to 0, that's 5, and then from 0 to 3, that's 3, so 5 plus 3 equals 8, so that's an 8. This is changing by a +2, so that means that my slope is 8/2, which will simplify down to 4, a +4. So now I need to find out what my y-intercept is. So I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. I'm going to take my m value, my slope, put it in there. I'm going to take my x value and put it in for x. I'm going to take my y value and put it in for y, and so it'll look like this. -5 times, negative 5 equals 4 times negative 3 plus b. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Negative 5. So I'm going to add 12 here and add 12 there. A positive 12 and a negative 5 is going to equal a positive 7. So b equals a positive 7. So now my equation looks like this. Y equals 4x, because that's my slope, plus 7. Number 6 of x and y. And so we've got 3 and negative 1, negative 6, and negative 4. The difference from negative 1 to negative 4 is a difference of a negative 3. And from 3 to negative 6 is going to be a negative 9, actually. Okay, so that's a pretty big difference. Because if you go from 3 to 0, that's 3 places, and then from 0 to negative 6, that's 6 places. So in total, you're moving down 9 places. Alright, so now my slope equals negative 3 over negative 9. And this can be simplified. I can divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, so the numerator by 3 and the denominator by 3. So that leaves me with, negative 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then you learned back in 7th grade, if you divide a negative by a negative, it's really going to equal a positive. So my slope in this case is a positive 1/3. So now I'm going to find out what my y-intercept is. Y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to sub in that 1/3 in for m. And then I'm going to sub in 3 in for x and negative 1 in for y, because those are my x and y values. So we've got negative 1 equals 1/3 times 3 over 1. I just turned this into a fraction because I'm going to be multiplying, plus b. So 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. So my equation looks like this. This can be simplified. 3 divided by 3 equals 1. So my equation now looks like this. I'm going to subtract 1 to get b by itself. Subtract 1 on that side. So I end up with negative 2 is what b equals. So b equals a negative 2. I'm going to throw this all together. Y equals m, which is 1/3. X, and then b is negative 2.